Good morning on this Sunday, August 25th, and welcome to the Georgia Gang. Governor Brian Kemp takes action trying to reassure folks near two toxic chemical plants he's doing everything he can to ensure the air is safe. Some Democrats say it's not enough. City documents show Atlanta's former CFO used taxpayer funds to allegedly buy fully automatic rifles. The feds are investigating. State agencies are preparing for budget cuts. Could that soon mean layoffs for state employees? Janelle Jones, our new panelist, is here along with Phil. Stacey Evans is filling in for Theron and Alexis. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
The news coverage is frightening and the public has been left in the dark. Those are Governor Kemp's words about toxic air emissions that could cause cancer. This week he met with the companies responsible.
The trust has been broken and it needs to be repaired.
From Covington and Rockdale County to Smyrna and Cobb County.
This is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, and we're the people.
Residents came in search of answers. Why were they told earlier about two medical sterilization plants that release ethylene oxide, a chemical the EPA confirms causes cancer? Governor Brian Kemp met with executives from both Sterigenics and BD, calling the meetings productive but says more work needs to be done. His office says Sterigenics in Cobb County has agreed to voluntarily reduce emissions and that BD and Covington should do the same. But some Democratic lawmakers want the governor to shut down the plants, not wait for results of air tests that could take months.
I sent a copy of the complaint that the Illinois Attorney General filed to shut Sterigenics down. It's like, if you don't know what to do, here it is, right?
This week, Congressman Barry Loudermilk sent a letter to the EPA demanding answers on how they are investigating this public health issue. Now, Phil, we knew this was going to be a really big story. I was glad to see the governor come out really in full force. Is he doing enough?
Yes, he is. I've talked to both Democrats and Republicans, and I mentioned last week I'm actually pleased. This is a really good bipartisan effort to get some answers, as the video had indicated. Representative Bob Ott, Commissioner Bob Ott, that's his district over there in the Cobb County area. He's been on the phone with the governor. The governor, I think, rightly so, has gotten some answers. The state EPD has actually apologized because they weren't out front. I think all of us were critical about that. And so the BD plant is a different issue. I don't think that they are stepping up to the plate like Sterigenics has, and they've explained Sterigenics that they've lowered their emissions. And so I think finally we're getting some answers.
Stacey, is it realistic to think that local government, state government can come in and shut these plants down during the air testing?
Absolutely, and I think they have an obligation to do so. The health and safety of the citizens of not just Cobb County, but also Fulton County. This crosses the Chattahoochee River into Fulton County. We're talking about a huge, massive area that also happens to include a lot of schools. So there are a lot of children running around on playgrounds at schools right now that are affected by this, and I'm glad that there is action starting, but it is way too late, and at this point they're going to have to go a lot of extra miles, and I think shutting down the plant until we know for sure that the air is safe for us and our children to breathe is the absolute least they can do.
Janelle, this really hits close to home for you, the Smyrna plant, Sterigenics especially. A lot of folks are really leery about the governor trusting that these companies will voluntarily do the right thing. They're quoting big tobacco, Aaron Brockovich comes to mind. What do you think about that?
You know what, I was going to say the same thing, like, where is Aaron Brockovich? But I think that, having the governor being so hands-on is going to kind of hold their feet to the fire. Back to Stacey's point, there are a lot of people that are being affected by this. I mean, right now we think that the toxins may lead to cancer, but it could be something else that's even more, toxic that can hurt people. And, there are people that are coming in town, not just from, not just the employees and the children in the community, but there may be people traveling from out of state that's coming in and visiting these plants, and it's affecting a lot of people. So I'm glad that the governor is on this. I think that'll help hold these companies' feet to the fire.
Alexis, weigh in on this.
I think he's just posturing and jaw-jacking. He could shut them down and get this stuff figured out, because he's just posturing, just saying you should do this. It isn't. He has the authority to make them stop.
He could be much more
If you shut the plants down, though, you cannot test.
You can absolutely test in a controlled environment.
They can test what's
Not
in
from
the
what the experts-
the environment.
How does
as
any
it
plant
is.
test before they open it? Are you saying you have to pollute people before you can find out if you're
Well,
polluting people?
I also
that
think,
makes no sense.
I also think it's a knee-jerk reaction, too, because at least in the case of Styrogenics, they have been now open about what they've done, what their levels are, and I think BD would be another case, though.
But let's not pretend like the governor is doing everything he can do. We know what a real governor and a real AG being involved can do, and that's what's happening up in Illinois, where the plant was shut down.
That's right.
And when asked why the plant in Cobb County could not be shut down, the CEO, the president, I don't remember exactly his title, when he was talking to one of the town halls, one of the first ones, he said, it would cost us too much money. We're losing too much money up in Illinois, and so we can't do that here as well. It wasn't because we can't test.
But the argument still is that you're not going to be getting proper test results if you just shut down.
I disagree completely.
Well, I
think car manufacturers would disagree with you.
In the atmosphere, we can test that.
Janelle, last word.
Yeah, I don't think it's fair to say that the governor is not doing a real governor, because he is involved as much as possible. I mean, by holding the community events, being upfront about this, he's not sending us the we're looking into it messages over and over again. He's actually putting action to it, and again, holding these companies' feet to the fire. So I don't think we can ask for more from our governor.
Well, the community events are happening because of Senator Jen Jordan, Commissioner Bob Ott, Stop Sterigenics Now, and local elected officials. Governor Kemp is not responsible for those events.
Okay, we're going to move on. Because in a court filing, the state of Georgia says the new heartbeat law is constitutional and justified, and asked a federal judge to throw out the lawsuit challenging it. And Janelle, the state has hired attorneys from Virginia to fight the lawsuit. Phil thought Republicans should not even take up this issue because of the lengthy court battles and the expensive ones. We're in the middle of budget cuts right now. As a Republican, what do you think?
I mean, I totally think this should be dismissed. I mean, let's just face it. So I know the Democrats want us to have no laws around abortion and we can just do whatever we want. However, there needs to be parameters, and that's what this is doing. The bill itself is a better bill. It's better than what was in place and what was currently going on. We just simply moved it from 12 weeks to 6 weeks and added a lot of aid to mothers as well as to the unborn child that's inside of her. So I'm totally with it. We need to dismiss this.
Alexis, are you surprised by the state's argument
I'm not surprised, but I disagree with it in terms of it isn't constitutional because the precedent has been set according to the United States Supreme Court that abortion is allowed up to 24 weeks. Georgia has already traced that back to 20, and this is just absolutely so restrictive that practically no one would be able to do it. Nobody is in favor of abortions per se, but the right to have it is a constitutional right that people need to maintain, because otherwise there will be poor women, people of color primarily, who are not as well off as white folk, who will not be able to get an abortion if they need one. And then you have to report the incest and the, rape. You know, all of that is so personal to people. It's just, I think it just is terrible.
Phil, we all predicted this, I guess, and so because we knew there were going to be lengthy court battles, but where we are today.
Right. Well, to Alexis's point, Roe v. Wade is at the heart of all of this, the Supreme Court ruling of 1973, and there's been various states, including this one, where it's going to be a test case. I don't know if Georgia will be the test case here, but it'll be years. This will be going through. The law is not going to go into effect in January. We do know that.
Stacey?
Phil and I agree. The law will not go into effect in January, and I think the state's motion to dismiss was certainly not surprising, but unfortunately for the state, the arguments that they're making were heard, tried, decided in Roe versus Wade, and that decision is final. It's the law of the land, and until that changes, this law in Georgia has no prayer of going into effect. So I predict when they have the hearing that there will be this law will be enjoined, and we will wait and see. And probably what Phil would be thinking is, why did we do this? If we had just passed Governor Kemp's trigger bill, we would be in exactly the same spot, except maybe we wouldn't be under threat of losing entertainment business, and maybe we wouldn't have upset
the trigger bill
the
was
majority
the
of
trigger
women
bill
across
was
the
better.
state.
All right,
not good, but better.
The next hearing is September 23rd, so we'll be watching that one. Well, coming up, for the most part, they are illegal to own. So why did the city of Atlanta's former CFO allegedly buy 2 fully automatic rifles with taxpayer dollars? That's next.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
The AJC has learned the feds are looking into former Atlanta CFO Jim Beard and his purchase of 2 military-restricted, fully automatic rifles with city funds. Beard's attorney says he purchased them for the police department. Well, Stacey, if that's the case, why didn't he let the police department buy them?
Right. Why didn't he let the police department buy them? Why were they not at the police department the whole time? Why were they ever in his possession? Why would he be asking the police officers to hold them? There's a lot of questions here. Unfortunately, I doubt there are a lot of good answers. We'll wait and see. I'm just glad to see folks and probably some Republicans finally concerned about automatic weapons.
Janelle, take that one.
I knew that was coming. But I also know that we won't have a big political discussion around gun control now because of this situation. I feel as though the biggest question is what did he plan to do with them? Are they collector's items, or what was the ultimate plan? I think that's something we should definitely look into. But are we really surprised? It's like another corruption allegation, right?
Well, we applaud City Council President Felicia Moore once again for requesting a forensic audit, Phil, of all of Beard's transactions. But here we go again, spending more taxpayer money on yet another audit from someone from the Reid administration.
Well, that's right. He's a disgrace to public service, and we do know some answers. This is a crime, what he's accused of, and I think he'll be indicted and prosecuted to the full extent of the law. I'm sure there'll be an indictment coming soon. That's my prediction. And as for automatic weapons, most automatic weapons are already illegal. I think you know that. And Republicans don't want automatic weapons. So that's a bogus argument, Stacey. You
that's
know
fair.
that.
But so you would like to join me in having a ban on semi-automatic weapons?
No, the AR-15 is America's
most.
Real point. Do you know the AR-15 is America's most popular weapon in terms of hunting and a collector's item? So you're going down a slippery slope. I know what the agenda is. We all know of the hard left. They want to confiscate firearms and gut the Second Amendment. That's not going to happen.
Absolutely.
It's a terrible agenda, Alexis. We want safety for our children.
Oh, and Republicans don't. Come on. That's absurd. We all want safety.
Your collection efforts trump children in this
instance. That's absurd.
That
is the worst talking point. You know better than that.
Well, Janelle, you didn't think there would be a debate on gun control.
All right, well, here it is, right?
Yes, it is. But we're going to move on because, Phil, I know you were not surprised to read that the Atlanta airport concession contracts have been delayed yet again. But isn't it better to wait and make sure that the procurement processes are in place, the right and correct procurement processes are in place before they put these out to bid again?
You would think so, but the administration of Keisha Lance Bottoms has absolutely done nothing in terms of procurement reform. You tell me what it is. In fact, I call it the cesspool. It is again exposed. You're just keeping former Mayor Kasim Reed's buddy in place. Even the union, the union over at the airport, says, what is going on here? I've talked to several city council people. They're very upset. They don't like what's happening, and rightly so. I think city council will be stepping up here. The procurement process is not only broken at the airport. We do know of bribery and corruption, and there's a federal probe that still continues. The whole city procurement process is a mess. You can ask city council people about that.
But Stacey, is this fair to the businesses that want to bid?
Well, no one likes delay. I think we can all agree on that. But if the mayor and the city had rushed forward rebidding these contracts, then I think Phil would be here saying, here she's rushing it through so that Kasim Reed's buddies can keep their contracts. I think we should trust the process, trust that they're doing everything they can to make it right so that they can do it right the first time and not have to come back and do it again.
Right, and apparently they have experienced some problems with the procurement access and process, and they need to get that fixed so they can have a good bidding process.
The mayor promised that these would be done in April, and it was delayed. She said there would be new things in place. They never were.
Well, I think they're working on it. And I think to bash her administration over this is unfair. She's been working really hard to increase transparency. This is part of that. We've got the open checkbook. I think we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, so all of this happens and Mayor Bottoms gets a pass, but Governor Kemp can't even host a community event, and he's a bad governor.
But he did host a community event.
I mean, no, the problem is,
to host a community event.
I'm saying we attack the governor as if, he's doing nothing when he's doing a lot with the Sterigenics, and then we come to this, and this is clearly a criminal allegation. However, it's still a criminal allegation, and now we're like, oh, the mayor's doing a wonderful job. I mean, I just feel like we need to, if we're gonna attack one leadership, if we're going to attack one person in leadership, they say they're not doing enough when they're doing all they possibly can, then we should do the same when it comes to the mayor as well.
What are you saying that she is doing is that it's criminal?
Well, no, not that what she's doing is criminal, but this is clearly a criminal act. This is something that should be addressed, and there's a number of indictments.
What is a criminal act?
In terms of the things that have been done in the corruption probe, people have been bribery. Yeah, there's been. Well, first of all, we know Adam Smith is in jail. The procurement officer is in jail for taking bribes. That is a criminal act. No, thank goodness.
It's not her administration.
No, but there's still an ongoing probe. We all know now that there's an FAA probe under Bottoms' administration.
And they are complying. They are cooperating.
Yeah, but they're accused.
Which may be part of why this is.
You're forgetting what the accusations are.
Last word. Okay, because I really want to get to this. District Attorney Paul Howard is stepping up efforts to get to young criminals before they end up in the adult jail. Now, he asked for and received funding for more mentors to teens who are accused of property crimes.
But there's one other thing that we're going to be doing in this program, and that is working with the family.
The initial funding for the program is $120,000. Alexis, is this the right approach?
Well, I'm not sure, but I do think that his effort is to get young folk out of prison for hopefully nonviolent crime, and to give them a second chance at rehabilitation.
Janelle, is hiring for mentors, I mean, something has to be done, but is this enough?
I'm not sure if it's enough. I do like the fact that this program targets the family dynamic, which I think is important because parental guidance in your structure is really important. My concern is that whenever you're getting funding, that the programs turn into paper pushing, and now you have to meet different qualifications in order to keep the program going, and you lose results.
All right. Well, coming up, state agencies are preparing for budget cuts. Will they lead to layoffs? We'll discuss that next.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
The Georgia House is holding special hearings this fall over proposed budget cuts ordered by Governor Brian Kemp. Phil, lots of exemptions here, though. But, you know, in terms of administrative costs, do you think that we'll see any layoffs?
No, the governor's office has been very clear, and there's been some misinformation in the media about this, that essential services are not going to be cut. And I think that's reassuring. And secondly, and Lori, you know this from your reporting days, I think we all know this, Stacy, remember, there's really two budgets. There's a budget that's been appropriated already that's going to be going through into the session in 2020 in January. So that money cannot be touched. That does give cushion to some of these departments that do have to do the 4% cut. And the governor's office tells me that obviously when the session comes in, then there'll be an amended budget, and you see how the revenue comes in. Then we adjust at that point. Maybe it won't be a full 4% for some of these departments, and as you point out, there are exemptions, for example, in the healthcare area.
And education, transportation.
Yes.
As a former state rep, Stacy, weigh in on this. You know, here we go again with some budget cuts.
Yeah, it will be difficult days for the House and Senate Appropriations Committee, for the governor's office, if they're going to put in 4% cut. What I find most disturbing, though, about this story as it came out last week is the only thing I heard of as far as how do we get more revenue was, let's talk about casinos. And I don't have any opposition to casinos, particularly when that money is used to help students go to college, which has always been the discussion, needs-based aid for students. But surely we have something else as a state that we can do to increase revenue, whether it's debating smart tax policy, whether it's moving forward on the licenses that still have not been issued or the process even put in place for the new medical cannabis cultivation, or going out and luring new industries. What's the next entertainment industry? Let's talk about that side instead of just talking about how do departments that are already, some of them working at the bone, how do they cut more? How do we make more?
But what about, you know, tax cuts are in effect, so they're supposed to stimulate the economy, but yet here we are in our budget cutting.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with creating efficient departments. I think that is exactly what this is. And then ultimately, the goal is to have enough money in reserve so that if we did see an economic downturn, we'll be prepared for it. So I don't think there's anything wrong with going back to your budget, looking at it and seeing. And these administrative costs, a lot of these are travel expenses, conferences, maybe trainings that are not necessarily, you know, critical to the position. So I don't think there's anything wrong with cutting that out if necessary in order to
but they're talking about 4% now and another 6% 6% in the next budget year. That's 10% cut.
No, that's incorrect. So from my source with the governor's office, it's actually comes out to 6% total. It's 4% and there's an additional 2% on top of that, which equals the total of 6%.
And it's a way for him to get to teacher, but it's a way for him to get to teacher raises and some of the campaign promises.
And there could be adjustments, as I'm pointing out. It's not set in stone. I do agree partially with you, though, Stacey. I do think we need to be looking at revenue streams. I'm not opposed to a vote on whether it's pari-mutuel, local wagering, or casinos, or even sports betting, which has now come into the picture. I will say this, though. I think, and you've heard me say this, I want more selective tax breaks. I don't see why a company like Delta that makes billions in profits gets a special fuel tax exemption.
Well, they don't now.
Well, good. They want it, though.
Well, that's a competition issue, but we should take a look at those. That's really what the Appropriations Committee should be doing right now.
All right, moving on to the next subject. 7 voters in DeKalb County had their voter registrations canceled because they listed a mental health center as their address. Now, voting rights groups are fighting this decision. Stacey, this is a huge issue in Georgia, but this facility even admits no one lives here. So is this the right argument for these folks to take up?
Well, we don't know what other housing options these folks had. We don't know. They could have been homeless. They could have been living in a motel, which is true for more of our citizens than we would probably care to think. They may not have had another address, and this would have been a place where they knew they were going to be going to on a regular basis. They knew they would be able to get their mail, and I don't think we need to be prying into folks' lives in that regard and auditing their housing situations.
Janelle.
Yeah, so I totally think that they were right by canceling this. The reason why I say that is because at the absolute longest, the individuals can stay there for a week. This is no different than if I went to Florida for a week vacation and stayed in a hotel. I don't get to vote in Florida and use my hotel's address as my place of residency. And then they said that between 16 to 18 people can stay there up until a week. So these 7 individuals is not the entire group. So that means there are other individuals who use their proper place of residency, which is what should happen.
All right. Yeah. Well, we're going to move on. A Gwinnett County solicitor is reportedly taking on Walmart, saying if you don't clean up the crime, he'll take the retailer to court. Solicitor Brian Whiteside has a point. 3,000 police calls to Walmart stores in Gwinnett. Phil?
This is outrageous. I tell you what, thank goodness for Solicitor Whiteside. I think Walmart has to be held to account in Gwinnett County. Those statistics are ridiculous. And this is what's happening in all too many areas where there's permissiveness by whether it's a store owner or the police or government. We've got to prosecute some of these crimes like shoplifting and quality of life crimes.
Well, this isn't, unfortunately, the first time that Walmart's relying on the government to pick up where it's leaving off, and historically they've paid their employees woefully low wages, and so their employees have a very high rate of depending on government services, government assistance, and things of that nature. So here we go again.
All right, well, we're going to wrap it there because we want to have time for winners and losers just ahead.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
I really wish you could hear what's happening in between commercial breaks, but we're going to do winners and losers, and we'll start with Stacey because you're our guest.
Oh, well, thank you so much. My winner this week, I'd like to make Jack Harden. He's a lawyer at Rogers and Harden, and also Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, because the city reached its goal of raising $50 million to help with the homeless problem here in the state, here in the city, and affordable housing, and they met the goal, and that's amazing. And Jack has been working on this for a very long time, I know, and so I'd like to make him my winner. And my loser is going to have to continue to be, unfortunately, the citizens and the adults and the children that are in this area where Sterigenics and BD are emitting these toxic gases, and until those are shut down, I think they're going to continue to be losers.
All right, Janelle.
Awesome. Well, my winner is House Representative Ronna Burnell, who she has a girls' conference coming up. I love it when I do see women doing awesome things. Her girls' conference is called Girl Code, and it's focusing on holding each other accountable to their future goals and being successful, and that's taking place in October, so that's awesome.
Great.
My loser is New York Times for their anti-Trump coverage plan that got leaked recently. I think that is just absolutely ridiculous, and that they should stick to just feeding us the news and not fake news.
Phil?
You know, it's football season. We're going to be winning. We're on the cusp of that.
Yes.
My goodness, we got the Braves, I think, on a winning streak, so that's all good. My loser is Fulton County presiding juvenile court judge Bradley Boyd. He was in the news this past week. This is very rare, but even the Atlanta Police Department did a Facebook post, and again, I talked about permissiveness. He's a permissive judge. He lets loose a 16-year-old gang member with a rap sheet a mile long. This is not how we combat crime. We need tough prosecutions and tough sentencing.
And Alexis.
Okay, I'm going to give a shout out to Kathleen Bertrand and the Bronze Lens Film Festival, which is concluding this weekend in Atlanta. It's the 10th anniversary of the festival, and they're having lots of workshops and opportunities for people to get into the industry, both in front of and behind the camera. So congratulations to them.
All right, well, thank you. And my winners, 3 Gwinnett County school bus drivers, because their quick action saved the life of their colleague, Felina Cannon. She suffered a seizure, and these 3 ladies performed CPR. Doctors say that they saved her life. Congrats to Cindy Johnston, Sandy Purcell, and Dee Walls. My loser, Gary Studenik, and I know you all read this story, who apologized for a prank meant between friends. 6 buildings in Marietta were evacuated because he left a note inside his Porsche saying there was a bomb inside and it would explode on contact. He was arrested and booked into the Cobb County Jail. And finally, our thoughts and prayers go out to Dr. Christopher Edwards, a prominent Atlanta surgeon and community leader. Police say his ex-wife shot and killed their 2 children, both in their 20s, before turning the gun on herself. A beautiful family and such a tremendous and tragic loss. We leave you this week. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again next week.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.